What's up, family? I don't know how many people I'm gonna get in here. I wasn't even really gonna go live today, so I just decided to get on here and tap in with the family because I like tapping in with the family. Usually I do it. I try to do it like Saturday noonish, but I wasn't able to do it at that time. And truth be told, I really wasn't even going to do it live. So I said, let me, put out an impromptu live, just for the hell of it, because I got a couple stories I wanted to talk about and touch on. I don't know if I'm gonna get any people right in here, right off the bat. But okay, I got a few people in here. Salute to the family. I can't pronounce your name, family, but salute to you. I don't want to chop and screw your name, but YUSU. Salute to you, family. Yeah, we got a couple people in here, so we gonna get into it. We got a couple of the family in here, so we gonna get into it. I got a few stories I want to touch on. Hopefully everyone is having a good weekend, and thanks for tapping in with me. Make sure if you're new to the channel, you like and subscribe. Even leave a comment if you want to, family. But we gonna get right into it. I ain't gonna waste no more time. The first thing I wanted to touch on was I don't know if any of the family has seen this, but the rapper Freeway of State Property, he became like an honorary sheriff. Even though that's not a real sheriff, it don't got no legal jurisdiction. Because he has I guess he has a nonprofit organization where though he helps like kids. It's called the Freedom Thinkers with health and financial literacy and provides training to kids in Philly. So they made him an honorary sheriff, and a lot of people was giving him backlash from that, because Freeway used to be, talking about hustling and being in the grind, trapping and things like that, and he used to be a member of the State Property, rap group. I used to like State Property too, you know what I mean? But I don't personally see nothing wrong with it, him becoming an honorary sheriff, because he don't got no legal jurisdiction, and even if he did, we need more people in them kind of roles, more black folks in them kind of roles, FBA brothers and sisters, that know the struggle, know the grind, know the hardship, and that's really going, enact some real true change and be about black first, you know what I mean? Because we got a lot of, people, even if they black and come from the lineage, and this particularly, makes me mad and it's disheartening. The truth be told, see, you got some black people, of the lineage, and some black immigrant tethers, that are, get into these roles as being in the law enforcement, and they become coons and sellouts. They begin tethering real hard, trying to put on a show for the white supremacists in uniform, and that's really disheartening to see, because when you black, you're supposed to be about your people first and foremost, you know what I mean, and try to enact some real true change that could really help the community. But I think Oskino Vasquez, said like, said a little. I'm not gonna say he was, beating him up too bad, but I guess he gave a little bit of pushback and resistance to him becoming a sheriff, because honorary sheriff, because he was in the group State Property, you know what I mean, and he had that song, even though what we do is wrong. But like I said, I don't see nothing wrong with it. And Freeway, actually becoming a sheriff, that might, get some young brothers and sisters reformed, because they'll be able to see themselves through Freeway. You know what I mean? Because people don't want to hear somebody old willy nilly telling them what to do. They want to hear somebody that is going through the struggle and survive what they survive. You know what I mean? So I feel that could be beneficial. Even if he was a sheriff, even though he ain't a sheriff that can go out there and arrest people. He's just an honorary deputy, and that don't hold no legal jurisdiction. They just basically recognize him for his Freedom Thinkers, a nonprofit organization that he got to help kids, you know what I mean? And I believe, like I said, we need black folks in law enforcement, but I hold them to a more tougher judging mechanism, because when you black, you're supposed to know better, and you're supposed to be about your people, black first, and if you ain't, and putting on a show for the racist white supremacist race soldiers in uniform, I don't rock with that, because I hate to say it, but a lot of black folks, even if they of the lineage or not, they get into these law enforcement roles and want to put on a show for black folks, and do a bunch of nonsense when it comes to black folks, and they begin, harassing folks just like the white boys in uniform. So I don't rock with that. You know what I mean? Because you're supposed to know better, and do better by your people, because a lot of, not a lot, but a good deal of, black folks, get in there and become just like them race soldiers in the uniform. And I don't rock with that. But I just wanted to touch on that. I didn't hear too many people talking about it. Freeway caught some, backlash for becoming a sheriff. I don't see nothing wrong with it. Just make sure, if you black, I think we need more black people in law enforcement, but just be sure that you're about real true change, because we ain't got no time for the tethers, the Sambos, the coons, and the sellouts. If you black, you're supposed to be about black first and be about really, enacting some real change in the community. You know what I mean? But moving right along, peace to cultural media. Uh, Peace to my sister, Cultural Media TV. And I want to, touch on TylerPerrys new movie, family. I don't know if any of the family seen that, but he got a new holiday movie out, and it's called, what is it called? Finding Joy. It's a good movie. It's a holiday movie. You know what I mean? It's like a romance movie. But initially, I was a little turned off. But I like some of Tyler Perry's, movies. Minus when he's always doing that, be dressed, and trying to make black men feminine and stuff like that. I don't rock with that aspect, and putting on that dress. But a lot of his movies, I do like. You know what I mean? But I just don't rock with all of the agendas that's in there. I can't say that, but this particular Find and Joy movie, I watched it. I was initially a little turned off because I didn't know really what it was going to be about, because it's like a romance movie, and at first it shows a sister, she's falling for this white boy. You know what I mean? And nothing wrong against that by any means. Love who you want to love, but I got my particular standpoint on it. When it comes to laying white. I don't particularly rock with that, but if that's you, knock yourself out. But I thought it was going to be about, geared towards that, but it really wasn't geared towards that like I thought. She ends up uh, going to, this white guy she was falling for. She goes to, like a family vacation with him. It's out there, in the mountains of Colorado, and they get snowed in for the holidays, and she ends up, she was already falling for him, but then she finds out on this trip that he was, he was marrying this white woman, so that made her mad, and she tried to leave, and she ends up trying to she gets a rental car, but she ends up, going off the road because she gets a little like compact car, and it's just snowing everywhere, you know what I mean? And she goes off, like she veers off the road, she loses control, because mind you, the snow, it's snowing bad, and it's up there in them Colorado mountains. So she slides off the road and goes into this lake, and then a brother rescues her, and then they bunt heads at first. He got a cabin, he's off the grid living because he went through some struggles, of losing his mom, but they end up, falling for each other. Long story short, I ain't trying to give too much of the movie away, but they got a lot of black FBA grassroots talking points in this movie. You know what I mean? They was talking about um where's my talking points that they was talking about? Yeah, they was basically talking about um there was a lot of black grassroots talking points about, like black cowboys in the movie, and the black native presence in America. You know what I mean? And the sister that veered off the road, she was talking about her family, was native. So they listening to, the grass. I brought that up to let the family know they hearing us on the black FBA grassroots when we use these talking points. It's getting into the mainstream lexicon, because Tyler Perry even put that in his movie. The black Indian presence over here in America. You know what I mean? And then they were talking about black cattle ranchers. We were the first cattle ranchers. We were the first cowboys as foundational black Americans. This is why they used the term cowboys, because did any of the family know that cowboy terminology was a derogatory term, to describe black men who were in the cattle industry. You know what I mean? So that's where they came up with that whole term, the cowboy act. And they just had a lot of grassroots talking points in the movie, so the messaging is getting out there. And if any of the family remembers, the brother that put out Sinners, he was talking a lot of, FBA grassroots, black grassroots talking points. He even said he was FBA, so they hearing, this lineage based messaging is getting out there. So I wanted to let the family know that. And if you get a chance, tap in with that Tyler Perry movie, Finding Joy. It's a good movie, It's like got a holiday feel, Christmassy vibe, and it's like a romantic film. She falls for the brother in the end, you know what I mean? And yeah, they get together. So moving right along. What did I want to touch on? Okay, let me get a swig of water real quick, family. How's all the family doing though out there? Everybody enjoying their weekend? I know on my weekends I pretty much try to relax, reset for the work week. I don't know about anybody else, and I hit up the gym too on the weekends. I don't know if any of the family gets to work into working out, but I really get into working out, and I got to start putting some more workout videos on the channel though, truth be told, and stuff like that, because I really get into working out. But yeah, and let's get right into it, family. This is the next thing I wanted to talk about. The brother Max B's home. The rapper Max B, formerly a Dipset, he's home now, and he had that falling out with Jim Jones. They were beefing or whatever, but yeah, Max B's home, and he went to the Gucci store, fresh out, and something, stuck out to me, on him going to the Gucci store, flashing money, and like I said, salute to him on, coming home, Max B, and you know, I don't like to see, black folks locked up, so salute to him on that, but are some people that deserve to be locked up, but for just any old willy nilly thing, they be trying to lock black folks up, and I really ain't with all of that. So I want to, shout out him for coming home. And I think Max B had a lot of good music I used to listen to when I was a little bit younger. So respect to him in that regard. But something stuck out to me, on him going to the Gucci store, because he's going in the Gucci store buying Gucci, flashing money and whatnot. And I ain't pocket watching or hating, but, we as, black people, particularly, we gotta, start making smarter and wiser decisions with our money. You know what I mean? To generate that generational wealth and keep that black dollar locked into the FBA community. Because people like the Asians, the Arabs, they don't circulate money outside of their community. They make sure their money bounces in their community, before it ever goes outside of the community. We got to start having more businesses and institutions. Not to say that we don't got none, because we got some brothers and sisters out here, doing their thing on the business tip, but just going and tricking off your money at the Gucci store, that ain't it right there. But I ain't pocket watching, and it's all good to look fly, but that's sending out the wrong optics to little young FBA brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? You should, if you can afford to do so, by all means, look fly, get fly. But, make sure your affairs is in order first. You got to make sure, your home is clean, everything is in order. You know what I mean? Because, that's putting out the wrong optics of just, tricking off your money is the right thing to do when we got to start, practicing group economics, making our money bounce around in our community before it ever goes out, because this is how collectively we as foundational black Americans, we get our leg up is through, doing business with one another, and stop spending our money, with the white power structure, because, like I said, money stays locked in these other groups of people's community days, weeks, you know what I mean? And they say money, as soon as we get the paycheck, it goes out of, our community. And we got to stop that, and that's sending out the wrong optics, because young brothers and sisters who don't know no better, they want to attain, buying the Gucci, this, that, and the third, when that ain't it. You know what I mean? You can have all the money in the world, but money ain't even really nothing no more. You know what I mean? It's about the credit score. What's your FICO score? You know what I mean? What are you building generationally? That's really going to be locked into your family and enrich your family for generations to come when you ain't here no more. You know what I mean? So we really got to start, locking down, doing business with our own people first and foremost. We should be supporting FBA brothers and sisters that got their businesses. And Max B, he already got a name for himself. If I was in a position like Max B, I would build up I'll take an FBA brand, first and foremost. They don't got to even, be known. I'll take that brand and blow it up just because I want to see my people eat. You know what I mean? Because I know if another FBA brother or sister eat, that's benefiting us all collectively. We got to get out of the I mindset and start playing as a team and start seeing we. You know what I mean? But a lot of them rappers, I don't know for the life of me, they ain't got no conscious, not to say all of them, but the majority of them don't got no conscious when it really comes to, being about your people and collectively, building group economics and things like that. That's how we collectively, gain power and gain a stronghold, you know what I mean? And stop supporting the white power structure, you know what I mean? It might be times that we got to go outside of the community to get what we need, but we make sure that's rarely. We got everything we need to fully sustain ourselves. And that's a part of doing for self, how Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan always talk. I ain't no member of the Nation of Islam, but I do rock with those brothers the way they think and that do for self mentality. You know what I mean? Because if everything's cut off, and you can't go to a grocery store, how you gonna feed and clothe yourself? You know what I mean? You gotta make sure that we got to start making sure that we got things in the community that we can go to and support our own brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? Because if we don't support our people, no one else for sure as hell will. So we got to start being about that first and foremost. But I start rambling a little bit, family. Let me get into it.
I'm gonna show you what the big veil up. We've been out. Ain't been out a week. Ain't been out a week. Ain't been out a week. So we gonna do. Look at the cream. Look at the cream. Look at the cream. Look at the cream. Look at the green. That's ooh.
See, that stuff really right there don't mean nothing. Them clothes, he giving his money away to the white power structure. You know what I mean? They own and control them. So that money just, furthers their power and control. That money locked into their community. Their wealth ain't going nowhere. You know what I mean? We got to start putting, wealth into our communities, generating that money with our people, first and foremost, because like I said, Max B could have took that money and, took a black clothing brand, some like a brother, FBA brother or sister who got their own clothing brand, it might not be that much known, but he could have blew him up just because he's the brand, Max B, so he could have blew that young brother or sister up, just by putting a shirt on or putting a hat on. And that's building group economics. We got to start playing as a team. You know what I mean? Because no one else is going to support our businesses if we don't. You know what I mean? We got to start setting up more businesses and institutions to where though we can stop, patronizing these big wig companies because they don't give a damn about us. Because let's be honest, you go into these stores, they give janky service. They don't respect you. You know what I mean? A lot of these Asians, Arabs, the Gucci store. You know what I mean? Even though Jim Jones was on a few years back, I don't know if the family remembers, he was in the Gucci store crying about service. You know what I mean? Why are you even patronizing them businesses? You know what I mean? But he ain't of the lineage though. He ain't a foundational Black American. But I'm just making that point that a lot of these artists, they want to keep on dumping their money into like Gucci, this, that, and the other. And these businesses don't give a damn about our people. You know what I mean? And I believe Max B's a FBA, foundational Black American, but that right there ain't it. You know what I mean? And it ain't even about money no more. It's about what your FICO score is. You know what I mean? What kind of, credit you got build it up for yourself. You know what I mean? But that sends out, I wanted to touch it particularly, and I ain't hating on him because I like Max B. I'm just giving my take on it, and I just wanted to let the young people know that ain't it because a lot of the young people, they want everything so fast, they get caught up in like the glitz and the glamour of things, and everything that glitters ain't gold. You know what I mean? Just because a person has a pocket full of money, might be buying this, they might not be building no generational wealth. They ain't playing as a team, they dispersing that money outside of the community, this, that, or the third. We need those black dollars locked into our society, not going out. This is how we get collective stronghold of things. Because I always said FBA is our superpower, is getting on code, doing business with each other, and supporting our own first and foremost. You know what I mean? Because that's the first step of taking control of power. You know what I mean? When you're really locking down and you can sustain yourself, you got businesses, set up to where though if you need a pair of jeans or shoes, you can go to a brother and sister and get that and not have to go to the dominant white society. Because I'm, real big on, doing for self and sustaining yourself, and playing as a group. You know what I mean? We got to start playing as a group, but I just wanted to bring that to the attention of the family.
OMG. So we here.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring that to the family's attention, but I'm off of that, moving right along. I want to show these old school brothers, you know what I mean? Because like I said, I'm big on, supporting black-owned businesses. You got these two brothers in Chicago out of the Chi, and they got a business called Bernard's Hats. These are two old school FBA brothers, and they really, embody what it is, that FBA manhood. You know what I mean? Being a black man, and they really stand on business because they didn't let uh, adversity or anything knock them down. They said they was thinking about closing once the pandemic hit because they wasn't getting no businesses, and they wasn't getting no people patronizing their business, and that's the type of stuff. Truth be told, we need to start supporting our people first and foremost. Damn, Gucci, Fendi, or Prada, they ain't about our people. They can give a damn about our people. You spend money with people that look like you, that be in your community. You know what I mean? That's how you take control of power. You don't really, other groups really don't move to spend money with other people, and that ain't hating on no other group. That's just, self-preservation. You know what I mean? And making sure that your group ain't erased, that your group will be able to financially compete, because having money, that's a form of power. And when you don't have money, doors won't even be opened up to you as a, as a group. You know what I mean? This is why, you know, uh, we got to start, controlling our destiny, doing for self, and making these black businesses to where, though, when we need stuff, we can support our people. So I wanted to, show these brothers in Chicago really doing their thing on the hat tip. But they said they was thinking about going out of business, but they held off, and now they,
Hey
I
y'all,
guess.
I'm not
Hold on,
on here to
family.
complain, but I'm starting to see that
You talking hard.
y'all, black and white and people not liking black people.
I don't like coming over here to TikTok sometimes. It be acting janky,
Hey y'all,
freezing and whatnot. But some of the videos, some of the things I be wanting to touch on, they be over here. So I gotta come here. But this app be glitching on my computer for some reason. But here go the video of these two FBA brothers doing their thing. Here we go.
Man, y'all gotta be the coolest cats in Chicago. I need.
And like I said, these brothers embody real black manhood. They stand on business. They talk about like how you dress and present yourself. Doors will be open to you. And that's something that we FBAs, we always, dress fly and like looking sharp. That's something embedded in our culture though. You know what I mean? So it ain't nothing wrong when I was saying that about Max B. We just got to make sure that we doing business with our own people. You know what I mean? Because I'm all about putting each other on. You know what I mean? So if I ain't got, and I put you on, one hand wash the other, both wash the face. We all looking out for one another. You know what I mean? And that's how we build, power, and, collectively get a stronghold as foundational black Americans. But this hat company, they said they was getting ready to go out of business, family. When the pandemic hit, they wasn't getting no people patronizing them, this, that, and the other. And, these brothers, even I think he said he was going to a club one time. Steve Harvey was in there. They had, like it blocked off for Steve Harvey. They seen how, fresh these brothers was dressing with the hats, and how, lit they were. And so the security moved the VIP section and let them come in just to talk to Steve Harvey. So it shows you these brothers, really making moves, and these brothers were sharp, are sharp, you know what I mean? And if I'm ever in Chicago, I'm gonna support this, they business. I might grab a hat from them, because this is the type of stuff we gotta start supporting our own business, because um people run into Gucci, Prada, and stuff like that. They don't give a damn about our people. These brothers, are a black owned business, and black owned business, they appreciate your money more. You know what I mean? And you get better service, because a lot of these companies, you go in there, they give you janky service because they don't give a damn about you. These Asians, the Arabs, and all of these other non-FBA people, even some of the immigrant tethers. You go to some of their stores, they give janky service. The African stores, the Jamaican stores, they don't give a damn about our people. You know what I mean? And they do business with their people. They set up in their own, try to, stay within their own community for everything. And that's how we got to be, being able to fully function, without going outside of our community. But let's get into this, family.
Yeah, tour this business today. I gotta see it.
Come on, follow us.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to my store. This is Baron Brown, and I'm Bernard. We started this business in 2002. We started having hat parties to drum up business, and it worked very well. Pandemic came, and business started slowing down. And we haven't been able to recover from that yet. I decided that business is slow and I was gonna go out of business, and something told me, sit down, Bernard, just sit down and wait for a sign from the Lord to tell you whether you're gonna go or not. And one day, Brown and I were down in Hyde Park, and Malik came and he asked if he could interview me. We didn't know the impact it would have because we didn't know anything about the, yeah, that's right. That's right. So what we did was we went with it, did the interview with him and everything, and people calling me from.
You could tell these brothers right here really standing on some FBA manhood shit. You know, if I was there, I'd be just soaking up all of the game these brothers got, because you could tell they got wisdom just from their disposition, how they dress. You know, they come out of an era, you know, of when black people, you know, was having like our own businesses was normal protocol. You know what I mean? I think what really got us out of that stuff was integrating into today's system. We should have kept our own systems and institutions, you know, back in the day, to where though, you know, we were having our own, because when they had that integration thing, you know, some of our people was running off to support, you know, their businesses and forgot about our own. You know what I mean? So I would really soak up these brothers' game, because you could tell these brothers really stand on business, just how they demeanor is. You know what I mean?
All over the country. You know what I mean? So now we trying to hold on based on that sign from the Lord. So we good on that end. Now all we need to do is just hold on. And that's right.
This is just not a store. This is how we carry ourselves.
If you're a real man and you want a real hat, come see us. Customer now, he come to pick up his hat, you know.
See, they on real FBA manhood shit, you know, and they was talking about just hold on, you know what I mean? The perseverance of us foundational Black Americans, it's impeccable, because them brothers just could have, you know, shut their store down. To where though when the pandemic hit, they said they wasn't getting no sales like that. They could have just shut down, you know what I mean? But they decided to keep on going because they had a vision, and you know they was gonna do their vision by any and all means necessary. So salute to these brothers on that.
I mean, how you doing?
I'm here for my hat.
That's right. If you do what you enjoy doing, you never work a day in your life.
You hear what that dude said? He said he came all the way from Italy, you know, which shows you the quality of these brothers' hats, you know what I mean? So, you know, salute to these brothers.
Life. Steve Harvey came to Chicago to get on the radio show. He had a party.
And the brother said, you know, if you do what you like doing, you'll never work a day in your life. That's real game right there. You know, I've long heard that, you know, when you do what you're passionate about, it ain't really working because you want to do it, you know, because a lot of people getting up, you know, going into jobs, you know, just for the paycheck, punching that time clock. This is why I'm really, you know, on the doing for self mentality that, you know, Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad always, you know, talked about and preached, because you got to really do what you love, you know what I mean, to really feel sustained and fulfill yourself, you know what I mean? So what these brothers is doing ain't really even work, because they doing what they love, you know, and I've long heard that.
At the Cadillac Room at Soldier Field. This was before he even knew what a good hat was. And I had on a good hat, ascot, camel hair coat, the whole nine, right? And his staff bought me over and moved the vehicle.
Brother said he had on a good hat, a camel something coat, you know what I mean? The brother was fly. You see him and Steve Harvey in the picture. Let's continue.
VIP roast and had me come over and meet Steve. See, that's why I tell you, the way you are dressed determines the way you are addressed. Reintroduce yourselves to soul music.
That's true though. The way you're dressed, you know, the way you dress is gonna be the way you're addressed. Because if you go into an establishment all bummy, you know what I mean, you could have $1,000,000, but just based off of, people are gonna judge a book by its cover, just based off of how you look. People ain't gonna want to, I know it ain't right, but they ain't gonna want to provide you with tip top service, you know. When you're dressed right, you know, people have a little bit, you know, more respect for you, and you know what I mean, and the way you carry yourself, you know, because people could tell someone when they dress right, they care about themselves, and you know, it just, things are a little bit, you know, more doors are open for you when you know you dressed impeccably, you know, and they could tell you take care about you care about yourself and whatnot.
Not call soul music for nothing. It gives a lot of answers to the questions that you be having. right? You know, black people the smartest people in the world, they just don't know it, right? When we find that out and start taking advantage of it, we don't need them, you know what I'm saying? We create.
And he giving up game right there. He said black people the smartest people in the world. We don't need them once we find that out. You know what I mean? Because we are. We as foundational black Americans damn near invented everything over here in America. And then, the white supremacists, remixed it and took control and claimed it as their own. We created country music. We was the first cowboys, like I talked about earlier. You know what I mean? We was doing it all first. You know what I mean? Rhythm and blues, jazz, country, hip hop, you name it. You know what I mean? We got a long list of contributions, as foundational black Americans. Potato chips, the light, we done it all, you know what I mean? And, we just gotta, fully, see our greatness because we great as a people, as foundational black Americans. There's no people in the world that are greater than us, you know what I mean? And, can done what we have done, and going through what we have gone through, like slavery, Jim Crow, and still make it out, without being defeated. A lot of these people, when they go through things, that's why you see the tethers, with that colonized mindset, because the tethers, in all actuality, they have been defeated. They let the racist white supremacists, take control of them, and a lot of them, tethers, they feel inferior to white supremacists, and we as foundational black Americans, we never, got that mindset. We always fight truth to power, and, we got pride in our blackness. A lot of them tethers, they run from blackness. They say, me not black, this, that, and the other. People be darker than me running around screaming that they ain't black, this, that, and the other. And that never been our disposition as foundational black Americans. And let's continue.
Everything on the planet. And once we realize that and take advantage of that, we're gonna be all right. But you got to take your game to the next level now. I mean, you can't.
He lacing him with the game. You heard what he told him. You got to take your game to the next level. He putting that other brother up on game. You know what I mean? Talking about he got to take his hat game to the next level.
See, once you become a man, you put away childish things. You know what I mean? Here you go, right here.
That's real what he said right there, too. Once you become a man, you put away childish things.
And you put away childish things. You know what I mean? Here you go, right here. I got $650. No, I'm just letting you know with the level that you playing on. You're a man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? These are quality hats. I mean, we grown men, right? I'm just telling you. Watch this.
Once I know
Watch this. Watch this.
Pronounce it.
Watch this. Pay attention, man, please.
Okay.
All
Let me
right.
see. Oh.
Cherry just like that. Man, y'all gotta be the coolest cats in Chicago. I need a tour of this business.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a little spotlight of this FBA business, Bernard's hat company down there in Chi-Town, Chicago. You know what I mean? If I ever get a chance, I'm gonna stop through there. You know what I mean? Because them brothers do got the hat game on smash. I'm gonna slide through there. So salute to them brothers right there. For not giving up and following through on their dreams. And these are the kind of businesses, though, family, we need to be supporting. More people that look like us, people that's of the lineage. You know what I mean? Because they value that money more. And these people keep, our people, we keep the money in the community. We ain't going off somewhere, to another community, putting that money into that community. We keeping the money locked into our community. But moving right along. Yeah, I wanted to touch on this FBA brother, Linton Blackwell. He was shot 17 times in the back down there in Atlanta, Bankhead, by a black police officer. But his last name is Walker. But for the life of me, I'm getting Tether vibes off of this guy, family. His name is Walker, and that's a black American last name. But I am getting them Tether vibes off of him. You know what I mean? Because they said he was an off-duty police officer. He was working. I guess the brother was shot at some nightclub, and they said he was an off-duty police officer in that general area, like across the street at some hotel. But from what I gathered from doing my little homework and due diligence, he was an off-duty police officer actually in the bar. and they must have known each other and had some kind of, conflict. And the brother Linton Blackwell, who got shot 17 times, he had some kind of dispute with some white man in the bar, and then he went outside, and then this is when the officer Walker, shot him in the back. But this officer Walker got a long history and track record of doing police misconduct, this, that, and the other. And I don't know if he's of the lineage. That's why I said earlier, you know what I mean? Not if you are black and want to become a police officer, by all means do that. But the judging mechanism I'm gonna hold you to is gonna be a little bit more tougher on you, because you're supposed to be looking out for your people, not doing a bunch of nonsense and shooting somebody 17 times in the back. That's a no-no. They were retreating. So what the hell you going to shoot? They pose no threat, so you can't say that. But they always come with that narrative of the brother had a gun. And this brother, they said a gun was found, but if he had a gun, they would have, brought that to the forefront. So I ain't buying that. That's typically what they do when it comes to, black people getting done unjustly. They come with that. He had a gun, this, that, or the third. And I'm really getting Tether vibes off of the officer, that Walker cat, man. You'll see a picture of him later, because I'm going to have to jump back on TikTok and show you this white man that was talking about the incident, because he had a little bit more receipts on the issue. You know what I mean? But I'm getting Tether vibes off of that Walker cat, and you shoot this brother 17 times in the back, and if he is of the lineage, this Walker cat who was the police officer, he hella off code and he's a coon. You know what I mean? Because you're supposed to be there, and look out for your people, be about black first when you're a police officer, not take up the racist white supremacist, race soldiers ideology, not be on their time, and I'm noticing, Sally, and unfortunately a good bit of, black police officers, even from the lineage or not, they get on that police force and start the cooning, tethering, shucking, and jiving.
Tonight only on 11 Alive, family and friends of...
Fair use, fair use.
Tonight only on 11 Alive, family and friends of a Metro Atlanta man killed by an off-duty Atlanta police officer in Buckhead are demanding justice. 44-year-old Linton Blackwell was shot in a parking lot behind a bar on October 11th. Tonight,
and the police force down there in Atlanta, they tried to flip the narrative and say that the cop was across the street at some hotel being off-duty security. He was actually off-duty security at this bar where that happened, and the white guy I got, with the receipts, he'll say that later on. And, this brother right here, this Linton, Blackwell, this brother that lost his life, shot 17 times in the back. He was an upstanding brother, in the community. He had his own business, where though he picks you up in an SUV and takes you to your hotel. And he was a rapper. He even got, pictures out there with him shaking the mayor's hands down there in Atlanta. You know what I mean? So that's a bunch of nonsense that they shoot this brother 17 times in the back. You know what I mean?
Autopsy report reveals Blackwell was shot 17 times and nearly every single bullet hit him in the back. 11 Alive's Cody Alcorn has been following the story since the night it happened, and just hours ago, he filed this report after speaking with Blackwell's manager, who says he just wants justice for his best friend.
My name is Timothy Coleman, and I'm Linton Blackwell's manager.
Born and raised in Metro Atlanta.
Preferably from some projects called East Lake Meadows, a.k.a. Little Vietnam, which we rep proudly. We got it on the shirt right here.
44-year-old Linton Blackwell, better known in the local music scene as B Green, but more importantly, a father, brother, and son.
Big old family from the East Lake Meadows. I mean, a loving family, man, and I just hurt for him, man. He just leaves a lot behind.
Blackwell was shot and killed by Atlanta police officer Gerald Walker.
That Gerald Walker family, I'm looking at him, but he's giving off a little Tether vibes, And if he is out of lineage, he's, hella off code. He's a coon, you know what I mean? Because someone retreating, I don't give a damn if, somebody did have a gun. I don't believe this brother did have a gun, because they say they found a gun, but they ain't saying if it was his or not, and if you have a gun and a police officer unalives you, they for sure as hell going to come out with that, because that will benefit the cop, to make the cop look like he acted in self-defense, you know what I mean? So I ain't buying that, you know what I mean? And I don't give a damn if someone was to have a gun, shooting somebody in the back when they retreat, and that ain't it, because running away, you shoot them 17 times in the back, anything in the back, and he got shot in the butt too, I believe. But anything in the backside, the butt, you shoot somebody there, they retreating. That's a bunch of nonsense. And this guy had a long track record of, doing police misconduct. He had no business being a police officer. Sometimes we always talk about, the white supremacists, but we gotta, watch the white supremacists that got black skin, the melanated white supremacists as well, because they just as equally as dangerous, even if they of the lineage or the tethers, you know what I mean? We gotta watch the melanated white supremacists.
Who was off duty working a side job in Buckhead at 5 Paces Inn.
I just fell to my knees because I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't believe that it was 17 times in the...
Yeah, family, Frank White, he could be Caribbean, because I am getting tether vibes off of him. You know what I mean? That's why I'm just, saying he could be a tether, possibly could be a coon, but because a lot of these tethers now, they hip to the game, because I was looking up the last name, and a lot of, FBA brothers and sisters, we hip to the game now, we'll look up the last name on them, but what they doing now is they trying to blend in, so they'll change the last name and take up a Black American last name, so it throws us off. And then when you go in and trying to find individuals' lineages on the internet, you can't find it, or you got to jump through hoops to find it. You know what I mean? And the tethers have gotten hip, so now they changing their names, from due to Tunde or whatever their name is, to a Black American last name. You know what I mean? So they can blend in, so to speak. But let's continue.
Back. Like all the shots. It's not one shot in the front. It's all 17 in the back.
Everyone agrees an altercation happened at the bar.
Linton, I guess, was escorted out of the premises or whatnot.
The GBI.
His hairline do look a little off too, though. I'm looking at the hairline too. It look a little off,
I says Officer Walker approached Blackwell outside, followed him around the corner.
The officer ensued, chased him down, and gunned him down. That's what we know.
The GBI says Blackwell got into a vehicle and put something in the back of his waistband.
If he wasn't pointing a gun at you or doing anything, what does that have to do with you shooting him?
And I don't give a damn if somebody did have a gun. Shooting somebody 17 times in the back, that there ain't it, because they fleeing. They pose no threat. You ain't got no just means to shoot somebody 17 times in the back. That's a bunch of nonsense. That's the actions of a coward. A damn coward would do this. You know what I mean?
Him in the back 17 times, that means he wasn't facing you. He wasn't a threat. Okay?
The officer gave commands regarding a gun before the officer opened fire.
I want him locked up. Gerald Walker needs to be behind bars.
The GBI is still investigating. Once they finish, the case will be handed over to the DA to decide whether a grand jury will consider charges.
Yeah, that dude had no business being a damn cop whatsoever. He had a long history and track record of, police misconduct. But let me show you what this white guy was saying about him, family, on TikTok. Because he was, this white guy was, speaking some truth to power about it, and telling that he wasn't, across the street, how they were saying. They try to say he was off at some motel being off-duty security. This white guy says, that he was in the bar when this happened. And these guys must have known each other. And, I could see that happening. He
absolutely did, because it was embarrassing.
Hold on. Told y'all about how TikTok be doing. Liking people's stuff.
He absolutely did,
That's my sister right there, so that's my sister right there, so I ain't got no problem liking her stuff. I was just trying to pause it. But here we go. Here go the guy right here. He was talking.
They shot him 17 times in the back. 44-year-old Linton B. Green Blackwell, a father of two, was gunned down by an off-duty Atlanta cop outside a bar 17 times. The officer's name? Gerald Walker. And police say he feared...
Hold on, family. I get Tether
Walker.
I get Tether vibes off of that guy, man. Look at him. The hairline, he ain't got an FBA disposition. You know what I mean? I don't think this cat is FBA of the lineage. You know what I mean? But he got that last name Walker. But like I'm saying, what a lot of these tethers is doing now, they hip to the game to where as though, they know that that's what we check for now. So they'll come over here and try to hurry up and change their last name so they could blend in, you know what I mean, a little bit more, But that's a bunch of nonsense, him shooting our brother 17 times in the back. And if he was, for some strange reason, of the lineage, he's hella off code for doing that. You know what I mean? A coon, putting on for the white supremacist race soldier in uniform. You know what I mean? This is why, I think that we need more black folks on the police force. But if you are a black folk person, especially somebody FBA of the lineage, and you on that police force, you got a duty and an obligation to be about black first and to look out for your community in my book, because I hold you to a different judging mechanism. Because in my eyes, you better than the white supremacists, or just equally as bad, because you're supposed to know better because you of the lineage. You know what our people have been through historically in this country, with slavery, Jim Crow, being racially profiled, and police doing a bunch of nonsense, violating our civil rights, this, that, and the other.
And police say he feared for his life. But a new witness is calling bullshit. That night, Walker was working security at the bar. He frisked Linton at the door. He knew him.
See?
Moments later, when an argument...
See, this guy said they knew each other, and that's the commonality that I'm hearing across everything I'm checking. These guys knew each other, so maybe he had some kind of vendetta with them, but that wasn't a lawful shooting. He shot our brother in the back, and he deserved to be sitting in a damn jail cell.
Broke out, the same cop chased him outside and opened fire while Linton's back was turned. His friend says he screamed, "Why are you still shooting him?" But Walker just kept pulling the trigger 17 times. The police claimed there was a gun found at the scene, but they released Linton's car 2 hours later without even searching it. They didn't impound it, they didn't test it, they just let it go. And here's the part they don't...
And they didn't impound the car or test it if it had a gun in there. Someone else was saying, with me looking up and doing my little homework and due diligence, that if a gun was in the car, they would have looked it up. They would have ransacked that car and checked it, what I mean, to make it fit their narrative, as cops, because it would have helped get, the police officer off the hook, so they can make it like the officer was justified. So being as that they didn't, test the car or go through there and search the car for any, other guns or, do their little police work when it comes to that, lets that it's a bunch of BS, that they wasn't justified in doing this, and shooting our brother in the back should let you know right off the grip that they wasn't justified in doing this. To shoot somebody 17 times in the back, that's a cowardly move. He ain't even have the decency to look our brother in the eyes.
I want you to know, Walker's had 7 policy violations already, 6 for body camera misconduct. They shot him 17 times in the back. 44-year-old Linton B. Green Black.
And the dude, Walker, already had police misconduct. He ain't had no business being on the police force, no way. But moving right along, RIP to our brother, what was his name? Linton Blackwell. My condolences goes out to his friends and family. I just wanted to make sure I put that out there. What else did I want to touch on? Yeah, family, we're going to get right into this. Let me pull this up. I got to go back. I hate jumping around from platform to platform, but different platforms be having what I need. The tethering is serious. They tethering all the way from Africa, and they tethering our old styles from the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm going to show y'all this, family. I'm gonna have to turn the volume down, so hopefully y'all are able to hear me. Give a thumbs up too if you can hear me when I'm talking, family, because I want to show y'all the tethering all the way from Africa, and this lets you know if so much foundational Black Americans ain't got no culture and things like that, they cosplay us every chance they get, and they running with our old styles from the 90s and the early 2000s when we had the baggy jeans era, you know what I mean, and the football jerseys and the basketball jerseys and things like that when we used to wear the throwback jerseys. Tether just, cosplay us and do a lot of projecting, because they ain't got no culture as tethers, so they try to project that on us when we FBAs are the culture. We the global culture. We got the culture as foundational Black Americans that influence the world, and here's evidence of this, that Tethers over there, on the continent of Africa in a village, is doing the crip walk and dressing like us. Here we go, family, dancing to that Mary J. What's that song? Let's get it. Hold on, I'll play it. I'll play a little. Y'all get my drift though, family. That beat right there. I forget the name of that Mary song. If anybody knows the name of that song, drop it in the comments. But they cosplaying hard, all the way out of Africa. They cosplaying us, running with our old styles, the G Unit era. You know what I mean? Look at them cosplaying hard over there, doing our dances, trying to crip walk and stuff like that. We FBAs are the global culture, man, and they want to project. They ain't got no culture, so what they try to do is project that onto us when we are the culture, that influence the world as foundational Black Americans, So, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that, family. But another thing I wanted to touch on, sticking to these tethers, you know what I mean? They got a new movie coming out, Sarah's Oil, about FBA sister Sarah Rector who found oil in her backyard, you know what I mean? And they got a tether playing our sister, Sarah Rector. I think the girl they got playing her is Haitian, and that's a bunch of nonsense. And then they got that new what is it called? Different World. And they got nothing but tethers playing that. But I'm hearing Tashina Arnold's daughter might be in that, so that's the only one to my knowledge and understanding that ain't a tether. But they got to stop trying to, put all these damn tethers into our iconic roles, because with that a different world thing, why don't they just change the name of it? Stop trying to run it up against ours. Just create something new and stop trying to, get that FBA demographic while changing it, up the whole scenario. That's kind of like what the Essence thing did. Want to keep the name Essence to target that FBA demographic, but put the tethering in there, to infuse it with all these African foreign themes, and we ain't with that. We rejecting that as FBAs, and one of the main reasons we rejecting that because that's a form of, cultural erasure, them trying to erase our FBA identity that was forged over here on American soil. You know what I mean? Because they know if they can go get a non-FBA to act out, our iconic roles, and be portraying our great FBA icons, they ain't going to bring the same energy to that FBA role because it ain't their people. So they could give a damn what the finished product look like, but when it's an FBA person playing an FBA role, they gonna have a little bit more, time they gonna put into it and care they gonna put into it to make sure that they get the character just right, like our brother Denzel Washington did with the character Malcolm X. He did a great job on that. You know what I mean? But these tethers, for the most part, what they doing is being rejected right now because we FBAs ain't getting behind it because we peep the gameplay that they're trying to do cultural erasure on us. And we can't have our lineage as foundational Black Americans erased. You know what I mean? Because this is why, delineation is important, you know what I mean? And the delineation, right now, is taking everybody by storm, because they never expected this. We pulled the Trump card out on them, and now it's causing everyone to scramble. They don't know what to do. And personally, I ain't supporting anything no more that, got a non-foundational Black American cast. You know what I mean? If you tethering it up, I ain't supporting it because I know that that's a form of erasure, so I want that project to fail and flop. If you ain't put my people in it, you know what I mean? Because why are you going out your way to ensure that FBAs aren't in these roles? You know what I mean? Because they know if they can go get the tether ain't going to give no pushback off of when they try to push these rainbow gang agendas, these alphabet agendas in there, this, that, and the other. They just going to go along with the program. And then when they try to do something, even misleading to put some nonsense in there about one of our FBA icons, the tether ain't going to give no pushback and resistance to that because it ain't their people. It don't represent their culture. So like I said, they give a damn what the finished product look like. And they know good and well we rejecting this now, but they keep trying to push it, you know what I mean? And that's being done deliberately, So yeah, I won't be supporting that new Sarah's Oil movie because they got a non-FBA playing the role of our sister Sarah Rector, and I ain't even supporting that A Different World. I used to like A Different World too when it came out in the 90s when I was young, but yeah, I won't be supporting anything that is, trying to tether it up, because why not just go get a FBA brother or sister to play that role? We got several great, FBA, actors to choose from, brothers and sisters, like I said, that's being done deliberately, you know what I mean, as a form of erasure, and we won't have our culture and our legacy erased as foundational Black Americans. Because what it is too, I think that when the dominant white society, the white supremacists, when they see, FBA culture on screen, it reminds them of, they misdeeds and them owing us in the form of cash reparations, and that they got everything, that they got at the hands of FBA. So they, want to, adopt a softer approach, to, get a tether, because they know a tether ain't got our resilient spirit, that fight will and tenacity, that never say die attitude that exists inside of us FBAs, and it doesn't remind them, so much of, that they owe us. Because whenever, they see FBAs, they know that they owe us, and that debt's going to have to be made good on, ASAP, and they know we ain't letting up off of that. So they want to, push the tethers, you know what I mean? And we rejecting tethers, even in political office too, because we ain't with the, the tethers, speaking up and representing us in political office, and, even spaces where reparations is being talked about, because like that guy Byron Donald, I think his family's from the Caribbean somewhere, getting up there saying, because his family can't get reparations, his mom can't get reparations, he ain't for reparations. Damn, now your family came over here off of what, my people built. If my people didn't build it, and fight, for rights, and, to have some decencies in this country, your damn people wouldn't even be able to flee from over here. So, your people came over here, off of what the backs of what my ancestors did. So you ain't got no say so in the matter if my people, should be able to get reparations or not. So we got to keep these tethers all the way, out of our affairs. You know what I mean? As foundational Black Americans. Then that guy who was elected mayor up there, it brings me, to thinking about that. He say that the New York was built from, damn immigrants. New York or nothing else in this country was built by damn immigrants. They came, to something that was already built by the foundational Black Americans. That's why we call ourselves the foundation, because you will have none of this without the foundation. A house can't stand without the foundation, and everyone knows that. But in them, recognizing that, they forced to recognize the injustice that was done to our specific lineage. You know what I mean? So instead of addressing that, they just want to tether it out, like the Democrats, is trying to do, but it's backfiring now because of this mass deportation. They just try to tether things out, to, get all of these foreigners over here to where though they ain't gonna make no real demands because they ain't owe nothing. Them people just happy to have running water and be out of a village, into the modern world. You know what I mean? They just happy with that. They ain't gonna really give no pushback to the system of racism, white supremacy. That's why they want them in them damn movies, because they view them as, more easy, but then again, the movie ain't gonna do good because they don't carry our same spirit of resistance, and they ain't got that spirit, to collectively galvanize people the way we do. So the movie ain't gonna do good, And if we don't support it as foundational Black Americans, it fails and flops like Essence did. That's why Essence failed and flopped. That Essence thing they was trying to do, because they tried to tether it up, not realizing we was gonna give the pushback and resistance to it. So I just wanted to hop on here right quick, family, and tap in, real quick. I decided to do an impromptu live. So, if you're new to the channel, thanks for tapping in with me. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, family, because I'm going to get ready to get off of here and enjoy the rest of my weekend. And y'all do the same and be safe. And remember to be aware, because to be aware is to be alive. Peace to my FBA family. Out.